Hey sippers, thank you for joining us for Cocktails and Conversations with a Twist. Remember, while we're spilling, grab your cocktail and start sipping.
Tonight we'll be discussing the process of change, and we'll also be spilling about the mother that may have taken it a little too far. Stay tuned.
We are here every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Make sure you're following us on Facebook and Instagram at Cocktails and Conversations. And most importantly, do not forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss an episode. Sippers, we still have our Bedazzled flask for sale. Purchasing info will be listed in the description box below.
Our featured cocktail for tonight is none other than the Woo Woo. If you're a fan of the cocktail Sex on the Beach, then you will definitely fall in love with the Woo Woo, which can also be served as a shot. So make sure to check out the drink details down below in the description box, and don't forget to tag us when you try this drink. We can all attest that as life goes on, change is inevitable, no matter if it's for the better or for the worse. We all here can confess more than one situation that has forced us to change, whether it be our mindset, our bad habits, our friends, our career focus, and even our love language, or what we consider to be relationship goals. We see and feel the change, but for the people on the outside looking in, what does that process really look like?
All right, so this topic kind of hits home a lot for me. It makes me think about my process of when I had just gotten into a relationship with my husband. Before my husband, everything was always me. I got to pay the mortgage. I got to pay the light bill. I got to pay the water bill. I got to make sure that everything is good to go. So I had went through a process where I wasn't working, and he was my boyfriend at the time. But even though in a way I kind of felt, I'll be the one to tell women at the end of the day, a man doesn't owe you anything, right? I've said that before, right? A man doesn't owe you anything. You're in a relationship, if he offers to give you something, it's something else, right? So it's a plus, I should say. So I was in a relationship with him, and while I was in a relationship with him, I had hit hard times. I take that back. We actually were married, and I kind of was not working, so on and so forth. And I can remember going through a situation where I just kind of didn't want to ask him anything, and he was so upset.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
This is while I was married. Okay. I thought it was before, but this is while I was married. And I remember him telling me, he's like, Tracy, I'm here and I'm in a relationship with you. If you are in a position where you can't do something, I'm supposed to be your helpmate. I'm supposed to help you. And that process, I say all that to say this, the process of me going through that, I guess, that change, I take that back, you guys. It was before I was married. Before I was
Get it together.
Yeah, it was. You know why I said that? Because you know how I know it? It's that because God had to refine me and show me some of the things that I was insecure about, and it laid me flat. So I got to a point where I really needed help financially. And my boyfriend at the time, which is my husband now, he helped me, and I remember feeling so low, not because of anything, because he had the means to help me, but because I didn't have the means to help myself. So a lot of times people may look at you like your life is all together, but they really don't know what the things that you're going through. You understand? They don't know what you're going through. So I was insecure in myself because at the end of the day, I always was used to having it. I always made sure I had it. And here it is, my back is against the wall and I didn't have it. So I had to allow myself to be vulnerable and open to say, I need help, because that's one of the things I suffer with a lot. A lot of times people think, oh, she always has it. I'm the person that they come to for advice and everything, but I go through stuff too, but I'm not as vocal to say, this is what I'm going through, this is the help I need. So that process that I had to go through, that change I had to go through, it was so much, it was needed, because I think it made me who I am today, and it made me the woman that my husband wanted to marry at that time. So.
I think I feel like change is inevitable. Life is always changing, and the sooner you get into a habit of embracing change, I think you'll grow as a person. If you're always resistant to change, you're gonna be stuck, you know? So I think about when I was married, and I knew at that time that I changed as a person around the time we were divorcing, because the things that went on in our marriage initially, when I was okay with it, around the time I got married is when I got closer to God. So during that time, you know, I'm going to church, I'm working on myself spiritually. And some of the things that were okay with me before we got married, for example, growing up, I lived a street life, so I didn't do things always the right way.
Okay.
And people may look at me and be like, what?
Yeah, I was just
But
about
I
to say,
did.
man, that's so hard to believe, man. But
I did. It's like, I don't want to say I didn't have morals, but I didn't have maybe a moral compass, you know, to tell me, don't do this, this is not the right thing to do. Don't hang with these people. These aren't the right type of people to hang with. So I kind of did a lot of everything, some of everything. And so being that particular person, I married a certain type of guy. And so,
Who was in a way attracted to those things?
yes. And so, but when I met him, I was kind of changing, but I still ended up marrying him. And what caused our divorce, because I do feel like he's a great person, he's a great guy, but he lived a street life, and so he did like a lot of illegal things. And then
I'm sorry. I'm laughing. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interject, but I'm laughing because Jason, you were not here. But Prep, do you remember on a previous show we had in season 1 where she said he used to do crazy things like have illegal insurance, and she's
that's what, yeah.
That
So,
you remember?
you don't remember?
What?
I remember saying that. So that kind of was the cause of our divorce, because I'm changing as a person. You know, I got married when I was 18. So like in my 20s, I'm going into the job force. I'm going into, you know, we're doing different things than what I was doing at 18 years old and before 18 years old. I wasn't looking at longevity or future things. So
what do you think like started that process of change? Was it the fact that you were getting closer to God, or was it something that
I
happened?
think getting closer to God turned on my moral compass. So some of the things that I was once okay with, it didn't sit well with me anymore.
Okay.
So I'm saying all this to say the person that people see today, I had to go through a lot of changes, a lot of self-reflection. Like I had to embrace change, which means certain friends I'm not going to be able to hang around anymore. Certain places I'm not going to be able to go anymore in order for me to better myself and be a better person. So I feel like I had to constantly embrace change. And I look at now going through that situation, I look at things in chapters. I look at my life in chapters. So it's like, you know, if this job is done, that's the end of that chapter. I'm looking for the next chapter now. If I'm divorced here, that was the end of that chapter. It's a new chapter. And that's how I kind of embrace change, by looking at my life in chapters.
That's cool. That's a good way to look at it.
Well, as for me, I changed a lot, and I feel like one of the things I changed that was very, I guess, important was, I don't want to say, like I used to always be able, I don't know what I'm saying, like, if someone calls me, I was the person you call when you don't want to fight your battles.
Oh yeah, I've heard stories.
And you called me before. Yeah.
No, Denise.
So wait, what you had to fight somebody for her?
Yeah. And I was younger. I was like in high
boy.
school.
What?
It probably was.
No,
But
it
you guys.
wasn't.
Okay. But you were there. I thought you were there. Okay.
That wasn't my fight.
So yeah, and then it's not until my sister went to prison, and it was like a wake up call, because it was like my sister was the opposite of me. That I felt like God, like, kind of switch our futures. because I felt like I was supposed to be the one ended up in prison for fighting or something. My sister was completely opposite, and I was ready to pop off. Like, if you talking about me, I'm gonna meet you at your front door.
So you don't do that no more?
No.
You know, I got this little chick that be bothering me. I was gonna try to, but if you don't do that no more,
No, I
find
just
somebody else.
no. And that process of change, it did come when my sister went to prison. It was just like a wake up call. But then I had to really deal with, okay, it's not gonna stop people from trying to come at you, or it's not gonna stop people from getting you angry, or even saying no to certain people. Like, I don't care if your boyfriend is cheating on you and you want me to go with you to fight the girl. Like, I'm not that person you're gonna call on, because at the end of the day, when I wanted to fight somebody, I never called anybody.
Can I say something, Pam? It made me think about it. I have this one girlfriend, a good girlfriend. She had went through a situation where, just like what you said, and it's so refreshing to hear that you had to look back on your life and say, no, I'm not going to be this person no more. Long story short, she happened to be at a place where they were going to fight this one individual. She wasn't the person fighting. She was just the tag along, right? She just came along. She spent over a year in prison because of
being there.
because the person who, the victim, well, quote unquote victim, the person who they beat up, she said, nope, she's a part of it too. And she didn't do anything.
Wow.
So sometimes you don't realize that those things that you do, you have consequences.
Yeah.
So.
And you just never know. One day can just ruin your whole life.
It can.
It can.
In 1 second, not even one day, because it literally happened in 1 second.
Blink of an eye.
And the justice system, it doesn't protect us. So it's not saying that she did, like my sister, she didn't do something wrong. She was defending herself. But it's just like, in many cases, I was the aggressor, where the person probably was just talking about me, and I went to their front door because I felt like I'm not the talking person. You're going to fill me with, I'm going to let my hands fill you. I don't know. So I had to change that. But then I had to really do, like, why was I so angry? Like, why was I so ready to pop off? Who cares if somebody's talking about me? Why does it affect me so much? And it used to be people that didn't know me, never met me, never had a conversation with me. So it wasn't somebody that knew me and they knew my business. So everything that they were saying was pretty much false things. Why did I let it affect me so much? So I had to really dig deep. And I feel like the 180 came for me is when I got closer to God, for real. Because then I was able to realize that things in my probably childhood that made me angry or ready to pop off, because that's what I've seen, and that's how people deal with issues, is by fighting or turning to violence.
So would you say your sister going to jail was kind of like that switch, that light bulb to let you know?
Yeah.
You know, it's funny you say that, because for me, I feel like change always comes when, like, some sort of trauma happens, like, in your life. Like, and I think a lot of times that's like God's way of saying, like, getting your attention, like letting you know, like, all right, you're not getting the subtle signs that I'm giving you, so
Let me hit you with
something. Yeah, because aside from becoming a father, I think one of the most traumatic times in my life, when I was young, I moved out, 18 years old. Me and my stepdad didn't get along. I thought I was a man. I moved out.
I was just going to say that.
And I was a man. No, I wasn't a man. I thought I was a man. But, you know, once you move out at the age of 18, like, the world don't wait on you. You know, like, the real world hits. But, you know, I took it in stride. You know what I mean? It was some hard times. I had a roommate. We used to struggle to pay bills, and, you know, we barely made it, but we made it. And a lot of times, you know, you go through stuff like that, and because you went through it, like, I noticed I took on, like, this sense of arrogance in a way, you know what I mean? And so, similar to you, like, I kind of had this mentality, like, I don't need nobody for nothing, you know, because I done went through the hardest of times, and I ain't need nobody. So I felt like I don't need nobody for nothing. And it wasn't until I was almost 30, and the job that I was working at Publix, I hurt my back. In the position that I was in, that was bringing in the money, I couldn't do it anymore. So I had to take a lesser paying position that I could actually physically do. And from that moment on, like, I hit rock bottom. I felt like, and people on the outside looking in was like,
still
looking at me
working.
like you still
Yeah,
working.
but they
So,
don't understand.
what you doing with your money? And it was like they couldn't understand. Like, listen, it's a drastic change. I was a father at that time. My daughter was born, so I was taking a pay cut, but I'm taking on more responsibility. So it was so hard for me to adjust, and it got to the point where like I had to move in with my mom, and that was so hard for me because I moved out at such a young age, and like I had to develop this arrogance about myself that kind of like, gave me this like I don't need nobody type of attitude. So to have to like humble myself and say, Mom, like I need you. You know what I mean? It was so hard for me. Similar, like I said, to what you said. And it wasn't until I came out of that where like my mindset changed, because like you said, you never know what a person's going through. And, everybody was looking at it like, well, you got a good job. You should have it together. You must be doing something wrong. And it's like, man, y'all really don't understand. Like, you have no idea what I'm dealing with. And now I never judge anybody by, how it looks on the outside, because who knows, they could be easily going through something similar to what I went through or even worse. So, I mean, yeah, like I said, a lot of things that it comes with. For me, I feel like change, if God can't get your attention subtly, he's going to make sure like, all right, I got you. I'm going to show you. It's going to happen. Because you're not bigger than me, you know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna make sure you humble yourself. And so, that was one of the things that I kind of, struggled. But it made me a better person. It made me who I am.
I know one of the things that you kind of said, it made me think about something. I was working at the bank, my early 20s, I was working at the bank, and when I worked at the bank, there was a speaker who came in. She was one of our biggest clients. So, we're trying to woo her, and she was telling us her story. Well, she started off, very successful woman, had their own personal jet, and she got sick. And these stories are so sad. She got sick, and when she got sick, husband ran off with secretary, kids, and this lady ended up being homeless. So here you are, you were once a millionaire.
Wow.
Man.
And now you're eating out of the garbage.
Oh, wow.
So now, in the situation she went through, she could have stayed there, but God's hand was on her, and it allowed her to get out of the situation, and she ended up bouncing back and, rebuilding herself. And she was a very successful person, very successful woman. And she says she doesn't hold the grudge to her children. That's a hard pill to swallow, but she said she doesn't hold them, but she says she leaves it at that. But, sometimes we may look at people. I know before, I'm not going to say I was that person, but I used to look at the person like, oh, I ain't going to deal with them. But after seeing what that lady had gone through, personally, her telling her story, it's not one time. I don't give people money, but if I see somebody who's homeless on the side of the road, I'll stop by. I'll actually get them food. I'll go to the grocery store. I'll get them stuff, because you truly never know how someone or what someone's story is and how they got there that way. Because a lot of our people, and I'm not only talking about African American people, I'm just talking about people in general. People are living checks to check.
Yeah.
And we are, I'm not going to say we, there are people who are one bill shy away or one accident shy away from being homeless.
Yeah, a lot of people are in that position.
Yeah, because like I
One
said,
illness,
Yeah.
you get sick, you can't work, and then, you may not even have insurance.
yeah, because like I said, during that period when I was right before I had to move back in with my mom, when I finally like gave it up and said I can't do this anymore, like I was literally, when I think about it now, I'm like, how was I making it? Like I got paid every week. I literally had like $115 every week to last me until the next week, because I was so behind that like I would be spending money that I didn't have yet. And so when I got my paycheck, it got snatched, like right away. So like the only reason I had that money is because that was the money that I had going directly to my savings. So what they would do is they would take everything out of my checking, but whatever I had in my savings, going to my savings, they didn't take. So I literally had $115 going to my savings every week. And that's what I used to make it. Mind you, I'm a father. Like it was rough, and I'm like, it got to the point where I was like, I can't do this no more, man. Like it was hard, and I always smiled every day. You know what I mean? Like I was the same person no matter what. So nobody ever knew, like the stress that I was. Maybe a couple of friends that I can trust my situation with, but for the most part, nobody knew.
So how did you bounce back to get to the position you're in today?
Well, I got a better paying position eventually. But for a while, I stayed with my mom probably a couple years. And that was the hardest. Oh, man, no offense, Mom, if you're watching. But it was so hard for me to go back to, like, dealing with my mom on a daily basis,
You think it was necessary, though? Because, like I said, I think my situation was necessary because it humbled me.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. It made me a completely different person because, like I said, even I was never, like, the judgmental type, like, vocally. But, sometimes you think certain things. Like, like you'll hear a person's story. And I know I used to write people off quick a lot of times. Like they'll tell me something like, oh yeah, I used to do this and I used to do that, but now I know. And in my mind I'm like, yeah, right. You know what I mean? Like it sounds good, but yeah, I don't believe that. But I became that person. You know what I mean? Like now I'm living with my mom, and when I try to tell someone, I have my own place and everything, they're looking like, I'm thinking to myself, like, they probably thinking the same way I used to think, like, yeah, right. So it got to the point where I didn't even want to meet, like, new people because I didn't want to have to explain my story and, like, try to get people to understand my situation because I didn't want to look like a charity case. So I was like, man, you know what? I just, my homeboys just tried, man, come on, man, you got to go out, man. You got to get out of the house. I wasn't myself anymore. So it's like, I needed to go through that in order to, like, learn how to be more, I guess, human and not so arrogant and, not looking down on people.
I can totally relate to that story because it was a point in my life where I was like at the bottom and I tried. I don't think if I was looking for a job, but I couldn't find one, and I knew my friends worked at like this burger place in Boca, so I knew I would automatically get the job because they were in like manager positions. So when I got the job, it didn't dawn on me that I would be working at a burger place. So I was like, I just was so like, now I need a job. So I'm like, okay, whatever, it's okay. And then one day they put me to wash dishes. God humbled me so much because, like you said, sometimes you're not judgmental, but you'll think things like
you think you're above certain situations sometimes,
or whatever. And when they told me to wash those dishes, I walked out, and I heard, I said, who they got? I'm not washing no dishes. And then I just heard God say, go back, humble yourself. He said, humble yourself, go back. I turned on my gospel music. I was a boohoo crying. People, those workers was probably like, what is wrong with this girl?
Right.
Had my gospel music on. When I tell you, I didn't even know how to, those things were so big, everything I had on was wet. Because it's like big.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I was boohoo crying. But that humbled me so much, that experience. I worked there for like 4 months. That really humbled me.
Yeah.
And it was so crazy because, I had to walk away from a certain lifestyle. That's probably why I was so quick to get a job, like trying to find a job. And I remember during that time I was at that job, this boy I used to talk to, he came to see me. And I was like, no, he came to see. He was like, he called me one day. Mind you, I didn't speak to this boy in a couple months. And I was like, he called me out the blue, and it was a Friday night, and I knew I was going to prayer night at church. So I was like, he was like, oh, let me come see. I was like, no, I'm going to church. No. And he was like, I'm just going to slide up on you real quick. I was like, okay. So he pulled up in his new Range Rover. And I was like, God. And then he was like talking to me. He was like, oh, what are you doing now? Like, you know. And I was like, oh, I work. He was like, you work? He was like, where you work at? I was like, this burger place in Boca. It's called, I said, you know, Shake Shack. And he was like, you work at a burger place? You? He pulled out $20,000 in cash and tried to give it to me. I said no. Because I knew God wouldn't want me to have it that way. But the old Vanessa would have took it. Showing your dependence. But I depended on God. And I wanted to show myself that. So at that moment, I didn't take it. Still to this day, he'll bring that up. Like, I can't believe you turned down $20,000. And at that time, I probably only had $1 in my account. So it's not like I didn't want it. I didn't need it. And my car was on E while I was riding to church. So I tell that story all the time because it's just like that whole experience. And I felt like that was just God testing me.
Yeah.
And I passed the test because the old me would have took it. I needed it. So it's not like it was no need for it. And it's not like, oh, I don't know what. I just feel like it probably would have came with something anyway.
Right.
And I just felt like God, if God wanted to bless me, it wouldn't come from you.
Right.
Because I know that is going to tie me to something. I don't know what it's going to tie me to, but I know it's going to tie me to something. Right. And I wasn't, and I wanted to be broken free from that. I wanted to change. Like, I was so desperate to change that I just wanted God through everything. I really wanted to prove to myself, just to myself, that I can do it.
So that process.
Because even when I tell my mom, when I tell my friend, they're like, you didn't take it. And I promise I only had like $1 in my account. My checks used to be every 2 weeks like $100, every week $100. And you talking about somebody that would spend $400 on hair and leave it in for 2 weeks like that. Like, so that was the lifestyle. Like, so it was, I don't know, it was hard. But I love that experience that I had to go through because it made me who I am today.
You love it now because of the outcome. Yeah, when you're going through it, man.
Oh,
yeah, you're right.
Going through it, Lord.
But I was always happy. No, but I was happy. I'm not gonna lie. I was happy
during the process.
During that process, because I got my peace back. Because before I had lost so much weight, I had lost 40 pounds within a month. So when I started working at the burger place, that's when God was like tearing me. I was walking away from that lifestyle, and God was stripping me away from everything, the baggage, everything, and I was getting to loving myself, like
for you then.
Knowing myself, because I was a person that was always in a relationship, always in a long-term relationship. And when I tell people I've been single for 5 years, they like, that's so long. But to me, I don't feel like it's long. I've been in a relationship all my life. This is me loving myself. So when somebody comes into my life, you're not adding nothing to me.
Right.
I know how to love myself.
But you know what's different about your situation versus mine? Like, you kind of probably already had a sense of, like, I know what I'm doing is not right. In a sense. Prior to your cleansing.
Yeah.
But me, when I was going through what I was going through, I used to question God, like, what did I do to deserve this? You know, like because I never felt like I was doing anything that was deserving of me being like stripped the way I was being stripped. And I'm like, God, am I that bad of a person? Like, what am I doing that's wrong? And, you know, the breaking point for me, I remember it, man. My daughter, she was only like a couple months old. But, you know, babies know what home is when they get there. And I remember the first night I laid my daughter down. We were at my mom's place. And even though she couldn't talk, she looked at me. And the look she gave me was like, what are we doing here? Yeah, like, what? And I broke down. Like, that was the first time I cried in a long time. But that broke me because I'm like, man, like, I'm really at rock bottom. Like, even my daughter knows. You know what I'm saying? I feel like I'm being judged by my child.
How old is your daughter?
She probably was like, but she knew. It's like she knew like, this is not my bed. This is not where I'm used to sleeping. Like, she gave me this look like that let me know, like, this is not right. Like, what are we doing here? And like, I broke, man. That did it for me, and I just couldn't understand what it was. Like, why was I going through this? Like, what did I do to deserve this? And you know, now, like I said, I look back at it and I'm like, you know what? I wasn't the good person that I thought I was. You know what I mean? Like, I did have this sense of arrogance about me that thought I was better than other people based on where I was compared to where they were. And so I needed that. You know, I needed to go through that. And I thank God for it at this point.
That
So-
process of change
Yeah.
amazing.
It's
that's
not,
right.
but it's always needed.
It's,
Yeah.
it
And
is.
it's
Definitely.
necessary.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
definitely necessary.
It is.
Another viral video has surfaced the net, and people are livid at the actions of this mother. Take a look at the video.
My baby sitting up out there bitch crying.
I don't care. I told you stop playing
That
with me.
motherfucker cut my baby hair out of here.
So then,
Look at that
now
shit. That shit sad. Hurt
Now
my
what?
baby feeling.
now wait.
Cause you don't hurt the dad,
I
you
don't
hurt
care.
her
I
feelings.
do
You
my
hurt my
own
baby
girl
feelings.
hair.
My
I do
baby
my
sat
own
there
girl
for 2
hair.
hours.
I do my own girl hair.
My baby sat there for 2 hours.
Stop playing with me.
As people on social media rally against this mother, saying that this was uncalled for, a few people took to social media defending the mother's actions and expressing their own similar experiences. How do you feel about this?
All right, so this topic I know has been surfacing in the media, and what I honestly get from it is it's something deeper than the hair. I feel as if this lady probably has a relationship with her. She doesn't have a relationship with the father of her kids. She probably still want to be with him. I know it's a far stretch. I'm kind of jumping and I'm reaching, but it just doesn't make sense. Why would you get so angry? It's sad that kids don't get to choose who their parents are, because the reaction or just doing something of that nature, like you cutting your child's hair and she's like crying. And that didn't even, you know, sometimes when you're doing something, you don't realize you're just seeing black or you're seeing red, but you hear your child. I know, Prim, you don't have any kids yet, but you kind of hear your child and it make you resurface back like, what am I doing? Nothing dawned on her. She just kept doing it. And I don't care whether you do her hair or not. Why were you so angry?
And that's the part that bothers me the most is the little girl. You know what I mean? Because
It's hurtful.
my daughter's mom, I ain't gonna lie, if I was to take my daughter to someone that she doesn't know and get her hair done on my own, depending on how it looks, even if, no matter how it looks, I ain't gonna say, she gonna have something to say.
Really?
Cause it's gonna be like either it's not cute, or which one of your women you got to do my
So
daughter's
that's
hair.
what that was
So
my
you know what I'm
question.
saying? I'm gonna get something from her, but
It's not going to be that reaction.
right, the difference is, like, my daughter's not gonna know anything about that conversation. You know what I mean? Like, we're mature enough to know this is not how you go about having a discussion. You know what I mean? She would easily pull me to the side or wait until a different scene and say, you know, say whatever it is that she's gonna say, but to actually go as far as cutting the girl's hair and like, nah, like, I wouldn't even have a child with somebody that's gonna react like that.
But men be getting caught up.
And maybe she wasn't always like that.
Nah, it's no way. It's no
That
way.
thing is rooted in her.
There's no way
I
you
feel
gonna
like
convince
obviously that anger is coming from a different place.
me. But
It's
she
just
had
it
to show
wasn't she
signs of
wasn't
that.
angry at the child or the hairdo as much. I think she was angry at the father because it was said that he doesn't even see the kids as much. So obviously she's blocking that relationship, and I feel like that's traumatizing to the child for her to even, like,
Definitely.
you cutting her hair and then it's on Facebook. This when she gets older, she's gonna be that girl. Because sometimes on Twitter they'll bring up an old video and say, "Well, where is she now?" And people will tag the Instagram.
Right.
So it's just like she's gonna have to live with this forever, and it's just immature.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Prim, you said something. You said he wasn't seeing. I know it was stated on the video that he wasn't. Do you think well, I guess, do you all think? Do you think that he's trying not to see his daughter, or the mom is making it hard for him not to
I
see his?
think based off of that video, the mom is making it hard.
That's what I'm
And
thinking.
yeah, and yeah,
I don't
definitely.
know. I can't speak on that part because it's easy to speculate.
It is.
And,
It is.
you know,
But-
But we can draw conclusions. Like, the clues are there.
I don't know. I don't really like to draw conclusions. All I can do is judge her reaction to whatever, and that part was just, ridiculous. Like, come on, like, your child has to live, like you said, with this trauma. She's crying. Like, this is a child. That part bothered me the most. Like,
Yeah, I felt, what I gathered from the video, I felt so bad for the daughter. Just the look on her face. Number one, she was probably so embarrassed, And, I feel like that's traumatizing.
Yeah.
But also, they did mention that, I read a comment somewhere that the reason why the mom cut the hair also is because it was too tight and that they got weave added into the hair. But I do have a friend, she's the same way, she has daughters, and she tells her baby daddy, do not have your girlfriend doing my daughter's hair. I'm the only person who does my child's hair. But for me, I would look at it differently. Like, if you gonna help me out,
That's what I'm looking at.
and this gonna save me some time, then do it. But also, some of the commentary, it says that, he surprised his kids at the daycare and he picked them up early. He took the boys to get their hair cut and he took the girls to get her hair done. I don't see anything wrong with that. I mean, he's a man, he can't do it himself.
Right.
And if he's doing it as a treat for treating them,
and even if she did have a problem with how tight it was or the fact that somebody else did it, like I said, have a conversation with him aside from that, but don't let the child, have to deal with the trauma that you're inflicting on this child. It's not like this is coming from, kids have enough that they're going to go through and, throughout school with other kids. Like, why be the one to inflict this on your own child?
Could we have easily done, or easily have said, oh, you know what? The conversation, as far as the mother of his child, she could have went up to him, hey, listen, you know what? Whoever braided her hair is real tight. I don't like it. You know what? I think I'm going to take it out. But the way she was literally taking her hair and cutting it, honey, I'm not buying that story. I know she said it was too tight. You were angry.
she had a lot of
And even the guy said it in the video, like, you hurting her, like,
And she said, I don't care.
and that's the problem with me, like,
I'm petty daddy.
Yeah.
And exactly. So why? So that
So
goes another.
she's embracing that pettiness, and she's aware of it.
Petty is misery.
But you're not realizing the harm that you're inflicting on your child.
Because you're hurt.
Because you want to be petty, so now you finna roll that over to your child and hurt your child just to make a point. You're gonna hurt your child just to make a point to somebody else. It doesn't make sense.
She's like installing certain insecurities already in this child based on how you choose to respond to something you don't like.
And her other kids were standing there, so it's just like young boys. This is how you treat a woman, or this is how a woman and a man communicate, yelling over each other and
Right.
resorting
Setting so
to
many bad
You
examples.
never know the thoughts that the child is forming, because I had an incident once, because me and my son's father, we never argue in front of Noah. Even when we don't get along, we just never do. And there was a time we went to Disney World, and it didn't turn out right, but Noah didn't know we were upset during the trip. So after the trip, we were discussing it, but it was on speaker in my car, because your phone connects, so it was on speaker in my car, and Noah was there. But we weren't arguing, but we kept going back and forth, sharing how we thought the trip went, and both of us agreed it didn't go good. Don't you know, Noah just butted in and he was like, it's okay, Daddy, I don't have to go to Disney World anymore.
Wow.
And it's like, he thought we were arguing, and we had to tell him we're not arguing, we just discussing a trip. But he just formed that opinion like it was his fault.
Right.
You know what I'm
Oh,
saying?
man.
I always think it's their
Their fault. So that's
Yeah.
why you have to be so careful.
And like you
Yeah.
said, that was just a conversation. So imagine what this little girl.
That girl's like, that's
Yeah,
I'm sure she's traumatized by
Her
that.
dad probably could never to take her anyway. You know what I mean?
God forgive me. I'm just thinking, so now this girl, she gonna grow up and don't want to get her hair done.
Yeah, I mean,
I hope not.
It's
You
like,
never know.
No,
Or she be like, nobody can touch my hair because my
exactly,
mama.
because mom, exactly.
it's too much.
Yeah,
It's too
that's
much.
too much for a child to have to deal with. A baby
Try
to
to
have to deal
process.
with.
Yeah, and she was so cute and so little.
I don't know. From the video I saw, I didn't think the braids looked that tight. And even if they were, like,
Just take them out when you in your house.
Yeah,
If
man.
they were that tight, the girl would have
Would have
been
been
complaining.
crying.
Yeah,
She would have been crying. You
complaining.
know, kids are the most honest
Mm-hmm.
creatures on the planet. So they would have already told you,
Yeah.
Daddy, my head hurt or something of that nature. So she didn't say anything like,
She wanted to hurt the
Father.
And the father said the right thing. You think you're hurting me, but you really hurting your child.
I know there's something that I always say, and I'm going to say this literally till my face turned blue. There's so many women out in this world who want to have kids, who can't have kids. And you see these situations, we see scenarios like this that we've, seen on this video. And it's sad to say this. It's sad that kids can't pick who their parents are.
We would love to keep the tea spilling, but unfortunately, we're running out of time. But you can keep the conversation going by leaving comments below and on Facebook and Instagram at Cocktails and Conversations.
Thank you everyone for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See you Wednesday night at 8 p.m. for Cocktails and Conversations with a twist.
Good night.